Let's get started now. The prices of various consumer goods keep increasing daily, driven by the explosive dollar-naira exchange rate and other macroeconomic factors. The inflation rate in Nigeria is currently at 20.77%, according to the last report released by the NBS. The prices of bread, cereals, potatoes, yam, and other tubers, fish, meat, oil, and fat have also increased dramatically. The consumer price index has increased by 400% since ever. However, nominal or monetary wages have remained stagnant, while the real wages of purchasing power workers have continued to decline. While certain factors have provoked this cost of living, let's take a look at the impact of this development on the macroeconomic activities and an end to this. Well, for further analysis now, Mr. Akin Fatuke is a public affairs analyst and a chartered accountant. He joins us virtually. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Frank, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning to you. Now, let's have your thoughts on the rising cost of living in Nigeria. I mean, in the last 1 to 3 months, you will discover that the cost of living has been rising. So, what's your position on this, and how worse can it get?
Yes, I dare say that what we have from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics is a number, static number at one point in time over a range. And I dare say that under the law of averages, what you could have is that when it comes to inflation, it can only go higher and higher for our type of economy that we are, looking at. I hope you are still hearing me.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, all right. Now, I dare say that in the last 17 months, inflation, what we call galloping inflation, has continued to hit the roof. If you take a benchmark from January 2017, when we had the recession that became a cyclical, and the present government indicated that we went out of recession within a fourth quarter of a particular year, 2017, 2018. We are still not yet out of the woods. But I'd like to quickly just introduce Professor Steve Hanke's inflation dashboard. What the inflation dashboard does is that it looks at the purchasing parity power of looking at what the inflation numbers are saying. In other words, and that goes to answer your question. That how far
now, just before you get to that, just a moment, pardon me to jump in here, just a moment before you get to that. I mean, yes, of course, it's has continued to rise. You have said that we don't expect it to even drop any moment soon. But given the recent development, we've seen that the exchange rate has dropped. As at last week Friday, we saw it dropping from 875 naira in the parallel market, down to around 600 or 500 thereabouts. Again, that's a bit of hope for us there. Isn't that a sign that there is, light at the end of the tunnel? And put it that way.
Well, that would be a one-side narrative, I dare say. We all know the fundamentals. And even before we say Hosanna, in respect to the falling rates that you just mentioned, I dare say, based on my own expert knowledge, is even beyond the central bank, even beyond what central bank has done or not done. It's more of an act of God, because I think that was very, very, very artificial, and the market is trying to correct itself. Now, the exchange rate component in what we are looking at the current 16, 17-month high inflation that we are talking about goes beyond the exchange rate. Yes, the exchange rate as a component is quite relatively important. We shot ourselves. Well, I guess we decided to shoot ourselves in the foot, and then we are trying to live by it. If you look at the global logistics chain, the agricultural inputs, we are all aware of what has happened by way of devastating floods even if you say that might be an act of God, again, I do not think it's an act of God. I think it's something we ought to have planned with, and then look at our hydraulic investment plans so that the Lago Dam that Cameroon will open and reopen again will not fall upon us. But truth of the matter is that the low-hanging fruit, you and I, my parents, your parents, my grandparents down in the village who are doing subsistence agriculture cannot go to the farms because they go there, they either will be beheaded by some callous human beings that call themselves whatever they call themselves, or the fact that transportation logistics to take the little harvest to marketplace is just not of being there. It wasn't just
let me also come in here.
It has always been there. And to that extent, we have this real problem. And if you have civil servants and their salaries are not increasing in consonance,
just a moment to get the conversation going,
we have a mismatch.
Yes, I mean, to balance up the conversation, I know you highlighted the fact that this could, there's also the global factor. Then, of course, you also have highlighted, domestic factor as well, which is, of course, the issue of security. But if you put these two scenarios side by side, which one do you think it's most impactful when it comes to the issue of inflation rate and of course the headwinds we're seeing?
I mean, let me try and make it a bit dramatic and go the way of Wole Soyinka or Pepe Clark. If you took a gun and pointed it to your head and you pull the trigger and it goes blown off, versus if somebody who stands at a distance does exactly the same thing, which one is going to be much more devastating? Both will result in death, of course. But one is going to be much more devastating. The self-immolating one. The one you can control within yourself. I dare say the internal inconsistencies in terms of policy, in terms of exchange rate that you have mentioned, in terms of the fact that there is so much corruption within the system. The rich and the not so rich, the gap is worsening, and the fact that the revenue base that we needed to invest so that we can get better returns, whether you invest it in security, whether you invest it in yield potentials, again, has always been there since 1960. And whether you decide that you are going to look at the acreage that we are thinking of moving from 35 million hectares to 65 million hectares, they have always been there. But what oil, oil boom has done is that to take our attention away from there to make us a little bit much more lazy, and then we raised our hands. So the internal inconsistencies we have in there. The present AFD president, who was minister of Agri, perhaps since Professor Oluwasomi's time, the first University of Ife Vice Chancellor, made it a point that we are going to go into technology, and we made some. If you remember, we made some improvements. Farmers were becoming much more empowered. But what we have today, are the farmers empowered? No, not on your terms.
Okay. Well, what do you think?
There are low-hanging fruits that policymakers can come together, stakeholders can come together. It's not rocket science. If we get together and we do it with holistic honesty, we're going to be able to get there. Yeah.
It looks like, I mean, you've answered my next question. I was actually going to ask you, what are the things that you think we should begin to look at? I mean, where is the problem really? Where does the problem lie? And of course, you talk about the issue of policy as well. But let's look at, I mean, the issue of the issue of spending and the salary that you talked about, I mean, companies are also planning, or most companies are cutting down cost. And I don't think that a lot of, even government, except government, that perhaps is not ready to cut down costs anytime soon, which of course we're all aware now. But when it comes to, because Nigerians spent about 65% of their earnings on food, but we have not seen I mean, we have seen sporadic rises in the cost of basic food items since. But what do you think lie ahead? What lies ahead of us now? I mean, you said wages are not going to get, increased any moment from now. We don't expect wages to go up. Government, of course, the minimum wages are 30,000 or between 30 and 33,000. It's not been, I mean, most states are not even, implementing it yet as we speak. But what do you think in all of this that you have highlighted that are on the table at the moment, what lies ahead of us? And what do you think we can begin to do to address some of these issues? Hello, Mr. Fatuke.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Let me quickly.
Okay.
I mean,
so as we try to wind down now, yes, I mean, it's a point for us to start winding down. Yes.
In winding down,
yes.
My job is to come out here and state the truths, even if it will be damning the devil. If you bring in, and I'm a consultant, let me apologize to my medical friends, and you brought in a terminally ill patient, my job is to tell you the truth, and that truth is that I do not see anything in the immediate short term that is available for us that we can rely on. Don't forget the rain that fell last year. We'll get to this year before you can get the crops to come in. So there is this time lag. And in between the time lag, we have a void. The truth of the matter is that Nigerians should fasten their seatbelts. What do I expect? I will go with the Professor Steve Hanke, who around this time, specifically this time, last year, 2021, talked about our inflation to be 31%. That's when you put it purchase parity power, where you go to the black market and then you go out to the market to see what is really happening. 1 year after, only God knows what that number is going to be speaking to, and it's going to be much more higher. Unemployment is high, and official inflation is 20 plus. I think we should expect higher prices. What should we be doing? I think each and every one of us should be evaluating our financial strategy and using the worst case scenario. I'll be asking ourselves the question, what if the landlord asks me to go out if I am a tenant? What if there's no salary for me this month? What if I'm laid off? We should stop all this, God forbid. God has given us enablement, and we should get out of, God forbid. Let's assess what we have by way of assets and see how we can turn them to ready cash. Let's look at our savings if we have, and if we don't have, let's know that our seatbelt that we expect.
What you're saying in essence, what you're saying in essence is that Nigerians should not expect any magic, perhaps any palliative measures, or perhaps any effort to come from the government. And so perhaps an individual will have to, wear their cross or take their cross on. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Well, the effort will come from government, but it will be too little, too late. You are either in your grave by the time any palliative comes, and where is this palliative going to come from? Have you seen our revenue profile? Okay, are we not going to go and take loans to be given to people and be giving them handouts?
So is an election year? Just a moment.
Corruption. I'm not saying, look, we should continue to try. But you know what, Frank? Join hands with me, I join hands with you, and join hands with others. Let's see how we can decide to buy in bulk. It's not rocket science. Okay. How then we can then decide to share and whatever. Don't let us all put our loads on one pocket. This is now the time. Frank, you are a broadcaster, me, I am a consultant who can talk. I should be able to think beyond that and see what I can do, what I can learn, educational system is all what we need to do to try and beat inflation. The accommodation is high, shopping and groceries is high, the transportation is high, if you want to eat out, it's high, utilities are high. You know what I'm talking about? So we need to face, you see, he who knows and knows that he knows is a wise man, but he who does not know and does not know that he does not know is a foolish man. And it's only the foolish that will perish here. The resilience of the Nigerian is there. Yes, we pray. February 23rd onwards, we are going to get good trust in the government, and then we can start to build and build again. But in the meantime,
I think we have to leave it.
In the emergency world, you know, either of two things can happen: immediate death, or it's not. Sorry, not time for prayers.
Okay.
Time for action.
Okay, I think we have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Akin Fatoke, public affairs analyst and chartered accountant. I appreciate your time on the program. Have a great day.
Thank you. You have a great day too.
You've been watching Business Breakfast, coming to you live from iBrandTV studios here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. Still to come after the break now, Nigeria's public debt stock rose to 42.84 trillion naira. That's about $103.31 billion in the second quarter of 2022, as this raises fresh concerns about the healthy nature of the country's borrowing. Well, this is our focus next after this break. Please stay with us.